there are a number of these timelines around. You may have to share with somebody, if there aren't enough. That's number one. Number two is that this, thanks to Kelly Gerling, bless your heart, this is going to be videotaped. So, depending on your behavior, we will put it on the web. It'll go on our website if you're a good behavior. It'll go on YouTube if there's bad behavior.
I'll get you one. I'll get you one.
So when this building was originally built back in 1959, when the founders were planning it, whenever something was happening construction-wise or whatever, they would say Jesus Christ is the head of this ministry and all is in divine order. Today we may say that the Spirit of God is in charge of this process, that we are being called on this journey to Bethlehem, and we're 9 months pregnant walking down the road, so here we are.
On a bony donkey.
On a bony donkey, just kind of going, whoa. So we, as we do with every situation in life, particularly these that are huge, we surrender to the presence of God. So I invite you just to turn your attention within. And we know that this is not our church, this is not our building, but this is the building of Spirit. This is the building of God. This is the community of Spirit that all of us here and out into the rest of Seattle and South Lake Union, that our community, it goes beyond even these walls. And so we are open and receptive to divine guidance and divine order, that those steps that need to be revealed to us are revealed to us, and we take those steps in the right order. We are grateful for the SUV team, for the board, for God working through so many people here, through Scott and through Tom and again, the whole committee, the whole team. And we know that God works through every single one of us here, that we are all the voices and we are the ears and the hands and the feet of God. So may the creativity begin. Amen.
So I'm well aware that there is a big ball game this afternoon. Tom's job, one of Tom's jobs is to keep us updated on the score. But
No. For those of us recording the game. I don't want to go
Scratch that. Already there's dissension. What I do want is to get us out of here at a reasonable time. So if you are passionate about this game, you will at least get home by halftime. How's that? And you can leave.
Or if you're passionate about unity, you'll stay.
Yeah, whatever. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to introduce people who've been sort of in the inner circle so far in the planning, so you know who they are, so we can see who's there. I'm going to review with you the timeline briefly. Most of the time here today is to allow you, who have not been closely involved, to ask questions. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to get all the questions out first before we answer them, so that everybody can see all the questions that there are. And then we're going to go and use wisdom of people in the room and answer as many of those questions as we can. Some we may not be able to answer because we don't have the information yet. Some we may not have time to get to, but they will all be answered in due course. So I want you to just trust that that will happen. We'll figure out how to do that. And then we'll close with a prayer. Does that sound good?
In the timeline section, is there going to be an update about, I know there's been a lot of discussion about what's going to happen next. Is that going to be shared or going to come out through the question time?
That's a question I would ask you to hold and raise that. What's happening
Okay,
next?
so it's all through questions.
Yes, it's all through questions. I'm going to walk you through the timeline, so some of your questions may be answered, but as questions occur to you, just either jot them down to yourself or keep them in your head, and then we'll get them all out. these two wonderful women, Debbie and Melissa, are going to scribe all the questions. Okay? So as I was driving in today from West Seattle, I was going along the what's going to be the new entrance to the viaduct, the tunnel. I was watching this, the end of the viaduct that's starting to come down. I came out the other end and all this construction going on, turning right onto wherever I turned right on Western and down through here. And I was struck by how much has changed in the last 10 years. I remember my first year on the board in 2002. In that first couple of years, I remember putting up blow-ups of maps of South Lake Union down in the Fellowship Hall. This was like 2003, 2004, about what was coming and how much I couldn't get my brain around how much things were going to change and the changes upon us. One thing that's true about where we're doing, as Karen said, we're getting on this bony donkey for a ride to Bethlehem. And it's a ride that this congregation has only taken once before in the last century. So this is the ride for this century. And over the next 3 or 4 years, all of us are going to be taking a fantastic ride. And there will be bumps along the way, but we're going to keep those to a minimum. And this is the beginning of a process for that. So I wanted to just kind of walk you through this timeline. I'm not going to read everything.
There are more questions?
What?
There are more questions? Or you're going to do the timeline first? Oh, I beg your pardon.
Timeline?
I
Yeah.
thought she asked a question. I'm just.
No, hold your questions. Hold your questions. That's what I'm asking you to do. Okay? Because you'll have plenty of time to ask them. So again, we start in 2003 with a sale. The first time we sold some property was on the corner of 8th and Thomas. We sold it was a little paint store, I think, or something, and it's now a 6-story apartment house. And we got some cash from that. That's really helped us over the last 12 years. Over the last 12, 15 years, we have had increasing challenges, as many of you know, about keeping this building up to date and energy efficient and just in general good repair. That's been an increasing financial and energy challenge. And if you don't believe me, you can talk to Raimi Caillo anytime. At the same time, there was this growing awareness, as I've already alluded to, about what's going on in our neighborhood and how we might adapt to that and make use of it. And we've had, over the last few years, several times, we've been approached by interested parties who are interested in purchasing our property. And most of those times we said, basically, not now, we're not ready. But last spring, spring of 2012, the board in its wisdom, actually, before I go on, could I have the board just stand so we can see who you are? I was going to do this and then I forgot. Would the members of the Seattle Unity Visioning, we call it SUV, but it's the Seattle Unity Visioning team, would you just please stand? So in the spring of 2012, the board asked this small group of people to come together and begin to help vision and think about how we might respond to the changes in the neighborhood. Many of you how many of you in this room were at the meetings we held a year ago fall? So a lot of you, yeah, most of you. And if you remember, those meetings were to consider 4 options that the SUV and the board had come up with as possible ways we could go. One was stay and keep patching things together with bubble gum and baling wire. Stay and do a massive remodel. Sell and move to a whole new location, and stay and work with someone to redevelop this site. And as you can see there in that box, the vast, well, it's not a majority, but a plurality of people who came to those meetings said, we want to stay here, this site is important, we are the heart of Seattle, we don't want to move, and let's figure out how we can redevelop on this site. So, taking that, the SUV group kind of took that information, and then over the next 5 to 6 months, we had to kind of, we were discussing things, but had to wait to hear some final word from the city about what the new zoning codes were for this part of town. And that didn't happen until June, I believe it was June, July. And so once we got that settled, then the board said, okay, let's get moving on this. Come to us, they told us in September, come to us by November with some very concrete proposals about how we take some initial steps. And in November, so we as the SUV group worked on this, and we had to kind of balance 3 things. We had to deal with 3 things. One, how could we get the money we needed to build a new facility? We are not a congregation of gazillionaires, and we didn't feel we had the capacity to raise the millions of dollars from amongst us to do what needed to be done. So that was one challenge. How do we get the money? Number 2, how do we maintain as much control as possible over our own facility, so it has some integrity for us and does for us what we want it to do? And number 3, how can we minimize, sort of related, how can we minimize the amount of interaction with a developer that can sometimes be problematic, the back and forth? And when we wrestled with all those 3 challenges, what we came up with and presented to the board in November was the following. And I'd ask anybody on the SUV group to hone my words if I'm not getting it exactly. But what we said to the board was, we believe that it would be in the best interest of Seattle Unity if we took this property, and this property extends from the sidewalk all the way to most of the north parking lot. There's a strip along that building that isn't ours. And divide it and sell off a portion of it to a developer, to an interested party, and retain this part. So from the sidewalk to about, we haven't, this is not, nothing's, I'm about to say is final, of course, somewhere around the bookstore. That would be our building, our portion of it.
Which end of the bookstore?
This end of the bookstore, the south end of the bookstore. And all to be figured out, but we could go up several stories and have a multi-story building. The developer who bought it would go up, could go up many more stories because of the zoning here, probably would. And because of the zoning, that developer's building would have to be a mix of residential, perhaps some ground floor commercial retail. And then we would have, and some parking that we might hopefully buy into, some underground parking, and that we would retain this site and build a new facility on this site. One idea is we'd open it to the park, so that this 8th Avenue, if you remember, is going to be a pedestrian mall at some point. Not a mall, but a pedestrian space. So those are all details we'll work out in the future, but that was the basic thing we said to the board. The board approved that idea at its November meeting and is going to bring it to the annual meeting in February for a vote on the membership. That's one of the reasons we're having this meeting today, is get people familiar with this idea and start thinking about it and processing it, as opposed to dropping it on you on February 4th. So, the annual meeting's on February 9th. Sometime between now and then, we're going to begin doing more zoning and building code research, and hopefully retain an architect who will provide some initial concepts for the annual meeting. The sort of thing, very basic. Do you want to say something about what initial concepts mean, Tom? It's not
Our
detailed.
thought process, number one, the size property that we have here overall is about 28,800 square feet. And the intent would be for the church to maintain about a little less than 10,000 square feet, sell 10,000 square, 20,000 square feet off, so we keep about a third of it and sell 2/3 of it off. Conceptually, what we're talking about is, first of all, to make sure that what we can and cannot do within the new zoning code for the city. And then get an idea of that type of density, the height requirements, we kind of know, but we want to get it verified.
The what requirement?
The height.
Height, okay.
Right now, the way it says is that if it goes this way, we can go up to 85 feet on the Unity site. The site next door can go up to 240 feet. But there's some givens in that because you have to pay the city extra for that or put it in some type of affordable housing or something else. So there's some restrictions there that the developer would have to get into. But it's going to give you somewhat of an initial concept, size-wise, of what the church might look like. No details as far as the interior part of the church or that type of thing, but just some conceptuals of what it might look like to start with.
No questions. Hold your questions, not no questions. Hold them just for a second so I get into it. So if all goes well, at the annual meeting, you'll have this proposal plus some drawings of what it could look like. Now you'll notice the little dotted line there. So what we know is that we have an annual meeting on February 9th. Everything after that is estimates only. So don't hold any of us to these, but it's sort of a pathway of how we might proceed. So next spring, we'll be sending out RFPs, requests for proposals, to building architects, consultants, contractors, etc. And we'll be setting up a project infrastructure, which is going to be really critical to the success of this. So our current staff are excellent people, and they already have full-time jobs. This is not a job for them right now, and it's not a job for pure volunteers either. So we as an organization are going to have to step up our game and think in a way we haven't thought about before about what's a good project structure to put in place. Project management, finance, those kinds of things that have to be in place. So as Tom said, you make an error in a project this size and it can end up costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to think carefully about that. Sometime next spring and summer, we're going to be able to know what the market value is and begin seeking offers from people, developers. Summer, fall, we'll get an offer. Board and membership approve that offer. Then we engage in a whole detailed permitting process with the city that I know I'm going to have to learn a lot about. And at some time in the spring of 2015, so a year and a half from now roughly, final design for the building is approved and permits received. And then we start tearing this building down and putting up a new one. We'll have to find a new place to live for a while, new offices, new sanctuary. And if all goes well, in June of 2017, we're going to have the best damn party we've ever had. We will live in a building and worship in a building that we've designed together, and we've all had input on and been guided to create, and it's going to be a space for the 21st century. Just as this one served us for the 20th century, this new one will serve us for the next century. So, a lot to chew on, a lot to think about.
Very clear.
Well, good. Those of us who've been involved in this very closely are sort of familiar with a lot of this. Some of you who are hearing this for the first time, or you haven't really, I can imagine it may have landed on you, and you need some time to sort of let it sink in and think about it. So, and that's part of the normal change process that we're all going to go through collectively. So now is a time, thanks to Melissa and Debbie, for scribing questions. I'm going to ask them, I'm going to recognize you, and to get them out, again, we're not going to answer them when you ask them. We're going to get all the questions out first. So, Cindy and then Ron.
May I ask more than one, because I've been taking notes?
You may ask one at a time, so everybody gets a chance, okay? And we'll come back to you.
Is the design, the conceptual, is the architectural firm that does the concepts will we be locked into that person or can we get a different architect for the next part of the project? Such
Okay,
that we
so
have,
will we be using the same architects all the way through?
right, yeah,
Okay.
I don't know enough about architecture to know if somebody specializes in these two different.
Good question. Ron? And then Saddam.
Other than just a place of worship, are you going to have something for the community, such as a child care type place?
Okay, good. Sadat, and then Faith. And
Does
then
the idea of selling off that other piece, does that fully pay for our new building? Is that?
So selling, will we receive enough from the sale of the property to, you got it, okay. Great, good question. I forget who I said.
Faith was next.
Faith, and then Carl.
Yes, I guess my first question would be 10,000 square foot building with some stories. We now have a worship facility that accommodates about 1,000 people, I think.
600.
Would a building in this profile still accommodate a large worship facility like we have now, or are we downsizing our congregation meeting space?
Carl.
That was actually my question. How are we doing with recruiting in the South Lake Union area? Members.
How are we doing?
Yeah. In general and in South Lake.
Well, what's that? Recruiting new members in South Lake Union. How are we doing with that? Howard and then Jerry.
Wait a minute. Okay. Recruiting status. Got that one? Okay.
So, it seems like this church keeps on, in order to, when it can't make its payment, it sells off land. And so we're selling off our assets. Has there, because we have air rights here and we have land rights, has there been any consideration, this is what I brought up in 2004, to leasing the air rights and the land for 100 years? It would, I think it generated about $1 million a year. I think I came up with some
Okay,
numbers.
what's the question?
Well, have you, alternative 5 would be to lease the land and lease the air rights for the entire complex.
Okay.
So I have it right, because they've been in consideration of leasing air rights and land instead of selling assets?
Yes.
What are air rights, Howard?
We'll get to that when the question gets answered. Dirk, and then Dana.
This is similar to one before, but I have it more simply. How many people will the new sanctuary hold?
Okay,
Will it have room for expansion?
great. Dana.
Yeah,
and
just
then-
as a point of reference, how big what's the square footage of our current sanctuary?
Somebody got that? Can you just tag that onto the square footage? Cindy?
Because I haven't heard it discussed, can we review the lack of 8th Avenue discussion? Please clarify the 8th Avenue situation
Yeah.
for
Can we
this.
review the what? The 8th
The
Avenue?
future of 8th Avenue.
Oh,
The walkway.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Robin.
Hi, Robin.
First, I just want to suggest, we can't be on a going donkey. That's impossible if we're on a going.
All right, question.
I can't
Question.
hear the question.
My question is, how many people on the committee and on the visioning group are for tearing down the church? And how many people on the visioning group and on the committee are against tearing down the church?
So what level of support is there among the SUV and board
No,
for this proposal?
How many people are
Okay.
on that board that are pro tearing it down? I think it's important that we have that.
47.1%.
Wait. No, we're not going to answer. I'm in charge of this meeting. Okay. Dan?
Right, you mentioned a lower height to this portion and a big height to the second portion. What's advantages and disadvantages of that? I don't know what
Jerry.
My question is very similar to Howard, in that a congregation asked me today, is there any way that we can generate revenue in this deal to help support the church.
Did you have a question?
Yes, I would like to know how much it costs to get us out of the hole and repair what we have. I mean, it's a lovely church. Why knock it down? And if you generate more people, then it keeps
How
the
much to
church.
repair what we have?
How much would it cost to repair?
Don?
Having been involved in the rezoning since the start over 10 years ago, I know that there is a specific square foot limitation on somebody that can build a tower.
What's the question, Don?
That we have to explore whether the portion which is considered to be sold would fit the zoning limitations for going 24 stories, because if it doesn't, then we won't have a buyer.
Okay. Thanks. Did you get that? What's your name?
Tom.
Tom, all right.
I'm picturing the potential of a 7 or 8 story building
Of ours?
with the 85 feet
Yeah.
requirement. Isn't that seven stories? So potentially, we could build a 2-story building and pay for it, or we could build a 8-story building with renters or other revenue generating businesses or what have you, daycare, beneath us, and then we take the top 2 for a beautiful sanctuary with the rooftop garden looking over the park.
What's the question?
Can we do that?
Can we do that?
What will be our design? Is that okay, so how can we put that on the board?
Are we just going to build what we can pay for with the sale of the remaining property, or in our own right, work with developers to build to the maximum buildable capacity, or are we just putting a sanctuary on that spot?
Right. Great. Cindy, and then Robin.
I think Tom just said my question, which was, the board voted on the sell a third, sell 2/3, keep 1/3. And are we dedicated to that plan as opposed to keep the whole thing and do that split vertically? So that we get the top third and somebody else gets the lower 2/3.
Right.
And one
Yes,
building.
okay. Robin, and then the...
As Roger just said, I think we don't have a gazillion dollars. So as a guy is gonna, let's say Paul Allen, gonna buy this for a gazillion dollars. We manifest here, correct? We're manifestors. So why can't we manifest the gift for a gazillion dollars? I mean, certainly someone could gift us. And we could do all of this ourselves.
What's your question?
Why can't we manifest a gift? We're manifestors. So why not manifest a gazillion dollars?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dana? Barbara?
Has there been research, or has there been offers or interest for multi-use purposes that makes it in demand? I mean, do we know anything about that?
What's the
Anybody
demand for this space?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
What kinds of businesses and so on?
Okay. Barbara, and then Roger, and then Marcia.
Is the design including geographic parking?
Great question. Roger.
Has anyone in the Paul Allen organization already contacted us?
Great question. Did you get that? Marcia?
Will there be, this is a great business process, but I'm wondering if there's going to be a congregational gathering or a meditation, prayerful tuning in process to what's going on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Why don't you get that?
A congregational gathering?
Oh, you're, okay, sorry.
Will there be a congregational gathering?
For meditation and prayer regarding the process, besides in comparison to business process.
Yes.
I sat through the zoning meetings with the council, and I was most disappointed that they came out without any affordable housing. Would our plan include any affordable housing?
Would our plan include affordable housing? Could it? Yes. Robin?
Do we really want to sell, I mean, all of us really want to sell like to Vulcan? And what the basis of this question is this I know is sacred ground, and this I know is a holy place. So do we really want to sell, I mean, he's got the city. Do we do, and that, from what I understand, would be the high guy, I mean, he's the consumer. Do we really want to keep on selling to Paul Allen?
Okay. Dana?
Okay, well, with the precedent of the Bullock Foundation, the greatest building in the world is now, has there been research or anything in that direction to be a really top example of green building, and is that a part of the concern?
Good question. Ollie?
Where would we be financially if we did nothing? With the current trajectory of the membership, et cetera, and infrastructure costs?
And will we be able to provide any sort of parking if we do nothing?
We already had a question on parking. Oh, if we did nothing? Okay.
Want me to put it with this one?
Sure.
No, she's got it over there.
There's somebody said, yeah, what do we, let's make sure we get something about parking.
Got it right here. Parking, if we do nothing.
A couple more minutes on questions. George?
So has the board considered the possibility of a new recession?
What's the risk of another recession? Deb?
I noticed that the board voted in November on a proposal that they will bring to a vote at the annual meeting. Some of us are talking about what if we do nothing? Is nothing still a possibility, or did that vote in November lock us into a trajectory of selling and rebuilding?
Good question. Howard?
So I think if we look at this site as being a volume.
It's a question.
Yes. Well, okay.
Not a statement.
I have to state it. I have to set the stage, otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
If you set it, looking at a volume, we want to use maybe about 10% of that volume. How much revenue would the other 90% if leased generate?
Help me paraphrase that for like in this one.
Okay.
How much revenue can we generate with the space we don't have?
Assuming that we use 10% of the total volume, how much revenue can we generate leasing the rest?
I just have to ask the question based on what you're saying, is where would residents come if we lease it? Who pays to build something?
Well, we lease it for 99 years. Well, she asked
Have we talked to the Lutherans across the street at all to see what their thoughts are? If there's any, I'm curious what we're going to do, where we're going to meet in the meantime, and just wondering if there's any communication with the neighbor.
They sold
what's
that
going on.
property. They don't own it.
Robin?
They don't own the church.
Hang on.
If we do decide to tear down the room, we will have a space to move into that will already been, we know where we're going before we decide what we're doing.
So what's the plan for temporary
Will
housing?
we have a place to move? We definitely have a place to move.
Couple more
If we
questions.
tear down.
Then we're going to start answering.
Jenny?
Somebody in the hall. Loud, please.
So we have, there's been talk
Why don't you
about,
step into the room?
there's been talk about whether or not we'd be building on our own, whatever parcel is left, or whether or not we'd be partnering with businesses or low-income housing. Has there been any look into the idea as a church that is supposed to service and be part of the community and help bring South Lake Union in there, about instead of going with private private businesses that might be doing the, but looking at expanding CLI Unity when it comes down to helping us build and working with like creating a unity kind of based retreat or community center that could be underneath as part of the structure. That could be where we could.
Can you boil that down to a simple?
Have we looked into the idea of partnering with the city for a community center or with other
Public entities?
public interest aspects to build where we wouldn't be bought into a person that's just in there for profit, but might be in there that would help build the church's relationship with the unity and also help us extend down us as a church into being able to provide more for spirituality.
Got it. Good
Okay.
question.
Yeah,
Couple more.
sorry.
Roger and then George.
Have we contacted any wealthy churches about this program? How they might participate? There's some pretty wealthy churches in this town.
George.
So how much money are you expecting to get for the soul of the church?
Good question. Waiting for someone to ask that. Yeah, great. Two more. One right here.
Are we going to have certain groups that people that are articulate in commercial real estate can all get together and have their little gatherings of all their questions and stuff? You know, the people that have interest in those things, interest groups, like people that want to discuss
You mean in the church, within the
rent.
church?
If we're gonna rent something, that it's transparency, that, you know, instead of if we have a meeting and we all sit and discuss. Well, there's the SUV team.
Are you asking how can other people get involved who are interested?
Yeah.
Okay. Final burning question? Any burning questions? Before we start answering some of these? Yes.
What happens if our contractor goes bankrupt?
What's the risk here? What kind of risks? Yes. Great. Okay, final question to the man in the back.
Scott, is there an urgency for this? I know you have a timeline, but is there, does it have to be done in a certain amount of time?
Great.
Can I ask one quick question? Is there any discussion about God's solution here?
Is there what?
God's solution?
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna stop the questions. There'll be this is one final one.
How is the final decision going to be made?
That's a good final question. All right. So let's once these women are, once you flip them back over, and we'll work our way through them and see how far we get. If we don't get through them all today, we'll figure out another way to get them answered. All right. First question. Will it be the same architects used all the way through? Tom, I'm going to be talking to Tom a lot.
Well, that depends on what we want to do. It could be or it couldn't be. You kind of have two phases here. It's probably easier if we have the same architect. So we start out kind of a small phase, we do kind of a small conceptual and the densities and the square footages. So that could be one architect. And that person could go on and be involved with other architects down the road, but it could be two. Depends on the firm.
Can I just comment what you said?
No, actually, because then we'll be here for days.
No discussion.
But hold your.
Let me just say something, we have an email address that you can, any follow-up questions to this, or any kind of wealth of information that you may have to offer, you can send it to Tom, and so we'll have that with you.
Will that be posted? Will that be a public discussion, a public forum that we can all look at?
That'd be like a blog.
We got to set something up.
We're going to set
that. Definitely. More information rather than less. More and more and more until you're sick of us. And you can help.
Okay. Twitter,
Is the idea of selling a piece, so we got that. Is the idea of selling a piece to pay for building the new one?
Will pay for the
Yeah, that's the idea, yes. That's the idea behind this, that the money we generate from the sale would pay for building a new Seattle Unity facility.
And maybe leave some money in the bank.
Yeah.
No, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Definitely.
Well, we don't know what we're gonna get.
I know, but
Yep.
we're
All
friends.
right, we're gonna answer your question. Okay. Childcare and other facilities. I think that's to be determined. When we get more and more granular about what these buildings are gonna hold, how much space we have, how do we all want the space to be used in either to replicate current uses or add new uses?
I
That's
think
all
that
part
was
of
something that was anticipated, that there would probably be childcare in the new building, because I think Karen stated that was kind of a vital part of the plan would be to have some childcare.
The community is asking.
I don't know, you know.
All week?
Pardon? I don't really know, you know. I know nothing about childcare, so I'm not.
Hang on.
The plans for the building next door to the Lutheran Church are going to include childcare also, but we need to know that. Oh, are they?
You
Okay,
also
next
have
question.
affordable housing going across the street on Westlake, on Dexter. You see with that, right by the Lutheran Church, the whole block, half block there, that's all going to be affordable housing that's being built now.
As well as the childcare and human services.
And then next to us, across on this corner at Nell and Thomas, that will be an apartment house. That'll be, I think, 8 stories. It'll come back to the Lutheran Church. And there'll be a restaurant on the corner there as well. That's all the plan. That's will be starting to be built within the next couple of months.
Will it have vegetarian curb?
Scott, another process question.
Yes.
Do you want people to write down follow-up questions to some of the ones
That's
that
what
are
we just
coming
talked
out?
about, like, we'll have an email, we'll have a blog.
You're going to do it that way? You don't want them to write on a card right now? As they come out?
If they want to, yes, I'll take them. We'll take them. But we are going to have,
Do you
we're
have
going to have to
cards
set up
handy that we
other.
can give to them?
I can.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that. We want to get your questions while they're fresh, so thank you.
And then there's a couple of questions around how big would this be enough space? Would a building of 10,000 square feet, remember that's just the footprint. So depending on how many stories we go up.
Well, the discussion there is the number of people would be probably, you could easily put in 350 people. The idea was that everyone thought the church was too large. That when Karen speaks, this church is a third full and 2/3 empty, and that's very difficult. So the idea would be maybe 350 people, but you could probably expand it another 100 because you might have a fellowship hall or something. But if you had a lot more members, you can have 2 services or 3 services a day. So you increase the number of services as well. But the church itself would be coming down as far as the main part of the church is concerned.
All right, back to this chart.
What was it?
We have 10,000 square feet. Yes, that answered? Okay. Has there been a consideration of leasing, this is the question about air rights and land instead of selling assets. Anybody on the board or SUV?
Well, I don't think we ever considered leasing. I guess one question you have to ask for leasing the space would be, as Howard brought up, if you got, let's say you got $1 million a year, whatever that number would be, how do you get the necessary funds then to build a new facility? I think there has been some consideration given to leasing as far as if we do a 2-story building or an 8-story building, you can certainly make that into apartments or multifamily or some other type of facility that you would lease or could sell.
I see it as a 240-story building,
Yeah.
with, but how,
A quick portion of it being the church.
Next question.
Okay.
well, the question there though is that in a 240-story building, you can't go with 240 feet unless you do certain things. You have to pay like $25 a foot for that, the floor, or you have to put it into, basically into affordable housing to get them that. So, the person buying that might want to go 5 stories.
Okay, let's keep going.
We'll find out.
Okay, how are we doing recruiting people from South Lake Union? Do we know that? Do we have any parents?
Well, we've got our own marketing team here too, so.
Is there an answer to this question?
Yeah. Actually, I have some information. I don't know if it directly answers James, the number of people since the new year was?
Right, there are 127 new people coming to church since in 2013.
So we have a creating community team, and we review the welcome cards. The welcome cards have basically given us approximately 120-ish new people. We cannot designate.
These aren't just the people who came once, these are people who came back.
Okay, so repeating, we have this number of interested individuals, but we can't designate them as specific to South Lake Union. We just know that these are people that have shown quite an interest, and we'll be extending Christmas invitations for the holiday services to them.
We are not doing targeted marketing in South Lake Union at this time.
Have we done any other targeting for any?
Let's not get into that.
other-
Let's stay on these questions, please. So can we review the future of 8th Avenue? Can someone give that
Just briefly, 8th Avenue, the city has planned to shut it down. So just be a walkway, there'd be no cars or parking on it. It'd be kind of a big park that people walk through with trees and landscaping. And that's what the city has planned for 8th Avenue, right in front of the church.
When?
They won't give you time limit, they won't give you time frame, but that's the overall plan for South Lake Union.
So how far does it extend to the lake, or?
No, it's a couple blocks. They had, so we did meet with them, and they did say they would look at giving us some parking there on 8th Avenue, but it's going to be limited. Well, you're not going to have parking on 8th Avenue like you have it today.
The next question is about how many people will the future facility hold versus what it currently holds. And I think, as you correct me, that's all to be determined. And what size, what scope we want to build if we decide to go ahead and build. As Tom said, it could be a 2-story building, it could be a 6-story building. That's all dependent on a lot of conversations. Next question. What are the advantages and disadvantages of different heights of buildings? Again, I think that, I'm just going to take a step. I think this is sort of going to be part of our conversation about when we get down to details. How high, how big do we want it? How high? All that stuff is to be figured out in a collaborative a manner as possible with lots of input, but we don't know that. There's not a hard and fast answer to that right now.
I think the intent may have also been as to the building we would build being smaller than the building we're going to sell off. And what I understood from when you presented to the board is by selling off the bigger piece, that brings in a greater amount of income, which then pays in full for this building, for what we're going to build. By building something smaller, we maintain our autonomy and do not have to be in conjunction with some entity. We maintain whatever's going to be in that, say, 8 stories. Again, that's just numbers that we're using right now.
But isn't that up to the developer?
No.
Oh, it's not.
The next question was, I think Robin's about how many people were in favor versus not. I know on the SUV group, we worked until we got to unanimity on that question. So there was a lot of discussion. I don't know about the board.
What was the answer?
On the SUV group, we talked and talked and talked, and we finally made a unanimous proposal to the board.
So that means that there's an equal number of yeses and noes?
No.
It was consensus.
We were all in agreement.
Selling.
Selling, there was not one person who was not in agreement?
Right.
Wow, I wonder where that.
Same for the board. What do you mean you wonder where that person is? There wasn't one.
I don't get why
Well, okay.
every one of those people would vote to tear it down.
Scott, can I make a point?
Yes, great.
I'd like to step back for just a moment and make a point, okay? And the point I'd like to make is, think about the church's balance sheet. And now, this is not a God issue, this is a money issue.
God did that.
No, that's not the point I'm trying to make. I want you to think about just the dollars, and reframe this in the dollars and cents manner. If you look at the church's balance sheet, it's very strong. But in terms of dollars and cents, the community is very strong. Our balance sheet is also very strong. We are nearly meeting our operating budget every year. We have an $800,000 plus reserve fund. And then we have a very valuable piece of land. And if it's the will of the community to change the building that we will operate in over the next 50 to 75 years, where do we find the money? Okay? You have to monetize our assets somehow. Now, if we had a $10 million stock portfolio, we could consider selling off investments. But the thing that has the value is the property, this large parcel of property. And it's inflated to a tremendous value because of the real estate development pressures in the South Lake Union area. It's a very valuable thing. So if you try to answer the question, how does the church access money? You can go to a bank and borrow something and put an enormous mortgage on this property, which we could not carry and maintain. I would disagree with that.
I just want to say that.
But you put this community under the obligation of servicing debt. I sit on the finance team. I look at our inflow and outflow every month, and I worry about that kind of obligation. So then, I think we kind of got back to the possibility of selling off some real estate, which would free up money for us to put a new building up. Now, I personally was worried about, and I thought a lot about this, you know, years ago, they acquired this property, and we've got a lot of square footage here, and we'd be giving up a big piece of our footprint here. I finally reconciled that you could go up and have more square footage in a single building. It just wouldn't be laying out horizontally, it would rise up vertically. We may only need 3 or 4 stories to accommodate all of the church programs in the first decade. Maybe we rent out 3 on top. As the church grows, maybe we need more space. We could terminate those leases and grow into the last 3 floors, something like that. But the reframing, I think, if we're going to try to do something to improve the facility, come up with a new building, prepare ourselves to move forward for the next 50 or 75 years, each one of us has to think about where does the money come from, how do we monetize the assets that are available to us to create the wealth that will allow us to do a project like this. So, yeah. Thank you.
And Scott, I have a comment. The community a year ago told the church what they wanted. And my feeling was that, being on the SUD committee, was that I was moving forward in that direction. And that there wasn't any question of, are we going to tear it down? Are we going to make it better? Are we going to whatever? The community told me what they wanted, and I'm going to move forward in that direction.
And the community has another opportunity at the annual meeting to say, yes, we still want to go in this direction, or we want you to do a U-turn and do something different. All right. I forget where we are. How much to repair what we have? Raimi, do you have a sense, if we wanted to repair this building and bring it, we tossed, it was like a couple of $1 million at one point.
That's what we believed was true.
And that's probably
And that was based
underestimated.
at the time, and it continues, of course, to deteriorate and get more expensive to repair it.
Right. And it's
Is that $500,000?
2 to 3.
2 to 3.
The longer we wait, the more expensive it gets.
Okay. Any way to generate revenue to support the church? Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of things we've talked about. We could suck it all out of you. Sell the building. We could run a lottery operation. I don't mean to belittle the question. Believe me, I've been on the board, people in this room have been on the board. We've gone through every possible permutation of how to raise money for this church. And all of you have been part of that, and all of you have been generous.
So I'm not sure that the question is referring to the present, may be referring to the future about the revenue from those additional stories that we could build. So it may not, it
yes.
may be a future.
So I think we've talked about that a little bit, about what, as we think about this future building, whatever it looks like, there are obviously opportunities to generate revenue.
So one is that I know that we get revenue from the parking strip that we have now, which we lease out during the week. If we have parking in our building, we might be able to lease those spaces during the week to people in the area who work in the area.
Right.
So that might be another way to generate some revenue.
Will we just build what we can pay for, or might we expand the lease space?
To be determined.
I think that's
It's going to depend on how much money we get for the sale of the land and what kind of ideas the architect can share with us on ways to, develop the property that will unfold in part of the process.
Oh, here's the question, and maybe Tom or Greg. Will the new facility be too limited by the zoning requirements if we split the property?
I didn't mean too limited.
I think Don answered. Did you ask the question, Don?
This could be
if we
mine,
split
yes.
it, we split
I believe that the way the split is, it's 70 feet or 80 feet. And given the other portion that they're under the code, they don't have any trouble as far as being in the code. Of building a tower or doing the building is not a problem. Unless they change it, but it's not a problem as of today.
Okay.
So that was taken into consideration when we figured this out.
We're not looking at the now.
Pardon?
We're looking to the future. We're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
looking at the now.
They just
So
changed
today.
it. Pardon?
So today.
What do you mean?
You said that this didn't, it wasn't pertinent to today. But
I
we're
said the
looking for-
zoning today allows us to do, what we're doing allows us to do what we're doing today.
Today.
Yes, the zoning does.
But we're looking to the future.
No, the zoning that's just been put into place will be in operation.
Oh, it's not going to change?
Not since last summer, no.
It took them 10 years to do this, I don't know. It could change, I have no idea.
Why can't we manifest a gift? We can.
We can.
We can.
We should manifest.
We should. We could.
And this is part of the process of doing so.
Right.
Yeah, can I address something to that? I mean, I'm hearing two different thoughts here. One that's saying we need to consider our means and live within our means. But the thought that keeps coming up for me is how did Charles and Myrtle Fillmore come up with all that money to build the Unity Village when they were in the middle of a recession?
Yeah.
And so I hope that we do stay true to our unity principles. And while we have one foot on the ground, we are working those principles and knowing that even when we can't see a way, God can.
Amen.
And sometimes we're the ones that have to get out of the way. It will turn out the way it's supposed to turn out, and I believe it'll turn out the way God wants it. But I do encourage us all to maintain that open part of us and to really vision, because we don't know where the money will come from, just like Charles and Myrtle didn't know where the money will come from. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Where did the money come from, Barbara?
Yeah, so be very, very quick. Myrtle and Charles tried to put wells, build a well at the property they bought for Unity Village, and they kept hitting oil.
pictures, but they produced all the fuel that was needed by the village and produced money so that they could build the building.
I rest my case.
All right, next question, or we're never going to get out of here. Are we dedicated, committed to the 1/3, 2/3 split? I think all of that is detail we're going to figure out. But we are, what we propose to the board's going to bring to you, all of you at the annual meeting is a split. We'll have more details on how big that is as we get closer. Okay? Is the design to include underground parking? I think I could answer this really quick. We're hoping that the part we sell, if we go ahead with that plan, that building will have to have underground parking just because of the size of it, and that we would negotiate a portion of that parking for ourselves. That's our current thinking.
So they're coming in on the alley part to go to parking?
Oh, I don't know. That's detail we don't know. That's way down the road.
That would be built into the part of the agreement in advance?
Yes. Offers, interest for multi...
I'm sorry, there's a...
I'm out of line, but real quick, the 1/3, 2/3 split, I remember hearing you guys talk about the reason for that was because you have more control when you have your own property.
Correct.
Than if you were mixing.
Yes, because we had considered just one solid thing, and maybe a condo arrangement, but we decided that this would give us the maximum control over and design over our building. Offers, interest for...
What demand is there? What is the demand out there for this kind of idea? I think that's what she meant, or somebody meant.
Well, today, the demand is very high for South Lake Union. It's one of the hottest real estate markets on the West Coast. So as of today, the demand is terrific. There are all kinds of developers looking for property down here. You can see what's being built here. It's all over the place, and they keep building. So there's a whole new, up at the Times, more buildings up there. Amazon, doing 3 towers over here. So demand right now is unbelievable. That could change, but that's the way it is today.
Business, God. Business, God. I'm going to say something about that at the end, but will there be a congregational gathering for meditation and prayer during this process? I would hope so. I think we're going to have to be very thoughtful about how we move together through this process of change as a community and pay attention to lots of different ways to sort of be in discernment and be in connection to each other. Offers. Oh, no, we already did that one. Any Vulcan folks in contact with us? Yes, some people from the church have been in touch with Vulcan people, and they are interested, from what I'm hearing just kind of, not vague rumors, it's more than that, but there is some interest around, they're paying attention to what we're doing and what we're thinking about. And so there has been some contacts, but nothing definite at this point.
Don't put it in writing.
Yeah, we'll put it in writing.
Do we really want to sell?
Do we really want to sell? That's what we're proposing. We'll find out at the annual meeting if the congregation really wants to sell. That's our best thinking.
But that was their first choice. That's what we were given.
Yeah, the board wants to.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the early.
The congregation said a year ago, we want to stay and redevelop.
Want to stay, didn't say
This is how we've come back to you and said, this is how we propose to do that. And then you all get to choose again. All right. Will we include affordable housing? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. To be determined. I think we answered this one. Where would we be financially if we did nothing? I think Greg answered that.
Are there going to be research on green buildings and design?
I would think so, yes. Will we include research on green building design in our process? That's one of the things I remember from those congregational meetings. It was a big topic, wanting us to pay attention to making this a green, energy efficient building. So I'm pretty sure that will happen.
Maybe.
As the board, has the board considered possibility of another recession?
Can we provide parking if we do nothing?
I think, can we provide parking if we do nothing? But not,
Is that because of the
we're going to lose 8th Avenue, so we're going to, if we do nothing, we'll have less parking than we have now. How much revenue can we generate by leasing a 90-10 split?
I came up with, I think I did this in 2007, and I came up with a number of about $1 million a year.
Okay, that's great.
And that's, that's without, that's having our own space plus whatever revenue we normally generate.
Is doing nothing still?
Is doing nothing still? Nothing is nothing. There's no nothing. Not to decide, remember that old saying, not to decide is to decide? So we can't do nothing. Every time we do anything, we're doing something.
Physically, right now, we have a roof that's getting ready to expire.
Excuse me.
Right now, we have a roof that's getting ready to expire to the tune of between $200,000 and $250,000. And we have a heating system that's about ready to expire in a similar price range. So the question to the congregation before was, do we want to invest that kind of money in this building, or do we want to do something different, more modern? And so that's how we got started on this path before. So if we decide to do nothing,
We're still going to have to do this.
there's still, nothing is not an option because of the reality of roof, heat.
And how many people are cold in this room right now?
Okay, let's keep going. If we decide to tear down, will we have a place to move to? Yes, absolutely, that would be part of the
We already
planning
have
process.
one?
Well, we don't know, we don't.
Not for another year and a half.
Sure.
The dark. It's cheap, it's quite a conference. Where will we meet in the meantime? We'll need temporary sanctuary space, temporary office space, temporary childcare space. Yeah. Have we looked into partnering with city or community center in South Lake Union? We have talked about it, and that would be part of when we send out RFPs to interested parties. That's where I think that would come in. Who's going to respond in a way? And yeah, that answered the question.
Have we contacted anyone?
Have we contacted any wealthy churches? Not to my knowledge.
Well, we have contacted churches in the area who have gone through redevelopment processes on their own properties. So we have been in touch with them and
Learned from their
learned from what their experiences have been.
Did you contact the one over on Stewart Street? What was their?
We tried that one, we have not had Gethsemane. Are you talking about Gethsemane?
Yeah.
We've tried, we haven't had a response from them.
They did something similar. They had a large parcel and they divided it, and the church kept part and sold off the rest for private use.
I would encourage you to go look at that church too. It's
very, I drove by it, you can feel it, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really? When you just drive by, you
from where the old Greyhound bus station is.
It's beautiful.
Okay. How much money do we expect if we sell?
Da-da-da.
Top you go. Well, we got an offer for the parking lot that was in the neighborhood of $3 million, $3.5 million.
2.5.
2.5.
Just the parking.
The values today in land down here are someplace between $500 to $600 a square foot. So that's $10 to $12 million in today's values.
Not selling the north parcel. Okay. Hey, we're doing great. How do groups in commercial real estate, interested groups get involved?
Oh, this is participation in the community.
Yeah, so I hope I'm answering this question, but as we move forward with a structure for managing this, we're also going to have to figure out what's the most effective and efficient way to get input from people in our community, both outside these walls, but also inside these walls, who can help with this process. And we've tapped some of them so far, and I'm thinking there's more out. Somebody came up to me and Karen in the lobby today, somebody who has some expertise. So I expect that will happen. We'll have to figure out how to use that. What happens if, what are the risks?
So I think the question was like, what if the contractor goes defunct, or what if, all of that, and
Hopefully, we buy
There's a
insurance.
sinkhole.
well, hopefully we make a good selection of a contractor when the time comes, and one that's financially.
Well, the contractor probably won't go broke, we could go broke. That's why this is so important to have the right structure to begin with, because we're paying the contractor, and the only way a contractor goes broke, he doesn't get paid by who he's building for. So I don't think there's much of a problem with the contractors. We're gonna get a bonded, good contractor that does this type of building. But what the church has to be careful of is that we watch our own funds, that we can agree on a certain budget, and we stick to that budget, and we have some money left over. So there are risks in this, there are lots of risks in construction. I mean, it's a highly risk-type business. But the contractor, I don't think is a problem as far as the contractor going broke.
Journey to Bethlehem. What's the urgency to the project? What is the urgency for, why do we need to do this now? I would say one of the, is the condition of the building and the cost of that, the cost that keeps costing us. And the other urgency is perhaps driven by kind of the interest in South Lake Union right now. Taking advantage of freeing up locked energy.
And the oil wells.
So I'd like to speak to that urgency thing. I don't really know that there really is an urgency, because we presented these, the ideas to the congregation last year, a year and a half ago, and asked you, what would you like to see? And the majority of people wanted to see some change. So if there is any urgency, it's on the part of the SUV team and the board of getting information to you to let you know that we did listen and we are moving forward at your request. So that's the urgency, is we're trying to get this information to you so that, we can be responsive to what you've asked us to do.
I think that question was directed from this side of the room to, is there anything magic about 2017?
No.
No. It's a nice number, but.
And whether that's even realistic, we would want to try, maybe that would be a target timeline, but in this type of project, it will unfold as it unfolds. It can take 10 years, it could take 5 years, it could take 15.
And which year do they plan to do something different with the streetlights on?
We don't know. I don't know. Tom said how soon is this street going to be changed into?
I don't know, I would say the next couple of years.
Yeah, I thought there was a date.
Let's keep on track. We're almost to the end. We're almost to the end. How is the final decision going to be made?
And who? That was my question.
Okay.
How and who?
Congregational vote. The board is here not to make the decisions for you. We approved this idea to present to you. Seattle Unity is a community, and we're in this together. It's like a democracy. We vote, we choose together, and we support each other. So, the board's not running anything as far as this goes. We are here to accommodate this beautiful community.
And it's membership, not congregational. You said congregational, but it's the membership.
Voting
that gets
members.
approved.
I have a follow-up to that. There's going to be a vote at the membership meeting coming up in February.
Yes.
Will you have detailed options, or are you going to put forth your option? I mean, if we're deciding whether we're just going to be selling the property, splitting and selling the property, it's kind of difficult to decide whether to do that if you don't already have an idea of what you want your facility to look like.
Well, that's what we said earlier, Deb. At the beginning of the meeting, Tom said what will be present before the meeting, meeting, will be some more detail around the split and some initial drawings.
Okay, but will there be any proposal of if we keep and lease?
No, the
That would be
proposal.
premature.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Well,
No, because if we're voting at the meeting to split and sell, then you can't very well keep and lease if you've already split
Right,
and
so
sold.
if you feel strongly about keeping and leasing, then you would vote down the proposal to split and sell.
But
And
will
we'd have
there
to
be,
go back.
will that proposal be put forth? So whoever wants to see that happen has to put it together on their own. The board is committed to split and sell, and now it's just a matter of what's that going to look like.
The board is responding to the congregational meetings last year.
If the congregation, what I hear you saying, says we don't like the idea of split,
Then we go back to the
then
demo.
we have a whole nother bucket of meetings where we say, all right, what do you want to do?
But we can't keep having voting on options and voting on options and voting on options. You need to kind of drive the decision. And so it may well, what if the membership votes it down, yeah, we go back to the drawing board.
So is the congregation separate from the membership?
Yes. Membership are members of the church.
members here?
No, not
all of them, but.
Well, let me answer.
New membership class in January.
You've got the two best answers all around. I'm gonna answer the last question and then have Karen close this out. So this one is, I expect this apparent duality between God's work and business, and God and money, and business and God and spirit and money. I expect we're going to keep running into this all the way through, and we need to honor it. My answer to this is it's all there. We say it every Sunday. There is only one thing going on here, and there is money, and that's God. That's God in it. There is spiritual practices. That's God in it. It's all one thing, and I just think we have to remember that.
For the Hawks fans, it's 7-6.
Spoiler alert.
So Scott, thank you for leading.
So I just want to acknowledge that, when we're talking about change, it stirs up feelings, it stirs up emotions, and I think what's important is just to acknowledge that and be with that and not go, oh yeah, we know how to do this. None of us, at least as far as I know, have ever done anything like this before. This is new territory. And I know I've gone from grieving, wait a minute, are we crazy? What are we thinking? To getting really excited about the possibilities of what can manifest in this space and how beautiful it can be, at the same time honoring our roots. So I think what I would like to ask is for all of us just to be open, of course, to spirit and to listening to that, but also to what you're feeling, and just know that anytime we have any kind of a change, and this is a big change, it's going to stir stuff up. Yeah. So let's just stop for a minute. And again, we are so grateful for the guidance coming through our team, our committee, our community, our membership. And this is God's church. This is Spirit's church. God is in charge. And our job is to listen and to take those steps that are in front of us to take. And we bless South Lake Union. We're so grateful for the changes and the improvements that are happening in this neighborhood. It's amazing. And we are a part of that. And we have a purpose and a place in that. We are leaders in that as the spiritual center. So may this place continue to be that center, not just for our own community, but for the heart of Seattle. Let's say our mission statement. We are a welcoming spiritual community, thriving in the heart of Seattle, celebrating, inspiring, and deepening our individual and collective spiritual journeys. And that's what we stand on. Amen.